That song was written by my writing partner, Scott DeTurk, wrote the music, and Elia Weiss, who wrote the lyrics, from a reading we did a year ago of Journey, called Journey. Brad, did you take those lyrics?
I did.
Could I have them for a second?
Sorry, I forgot.
That's okay. I just want to refer to them right here. An adventure is a series of events, but a journey is knowing the truth, living a life of truth. It's been quite an adventure this week, and I rarely speak about current events from the pulpit. I feel my job is to inspire, to get us to understand this teaching from an even more exciting, passionate place. But when something like this week, with the events in Boston that happened this week, comes along, I am compelled to speak about it. And to speak about it from our point of view, from a science of mind point of view. So, while I really enjoy getting up here and being funny and letting Spirit speak through me and find the most interesting, bizarre, creatively funny ways of teaching this science, you'll excuse me today if I perhaps seem a little bit more serious. 3 weeks ago, I started with the concept of love only. That if we were to go through life and love only, things would change. And I'm sure many of you have tried this out, and I hope you're still trying it out, and I hope you're putting it on, and I hope you eventually wear it as your true embodied self. And I have been, and I continue to, and I expect it to be my life's journey, to love only, even when it's not easy. Sometimes, as Jamie said, it's not easy. Sometimes it's really easy to love strangers, and yet then we get to know them, as he said, and it's not as easy to love them anymore. But we're being compelled to love only. And then last week, it was forgive everything. If I'm going to love only, I have to be willing to forgive everything. I have to be willing to step into radical forgiveness, which means, radical forgiveness means that it never happened in the first place in the mind of God. And if it never happened in the first place in the mind of God, why would I choose to hold on to it? So it's forgive everything. But the title of my talk last week was Forgive and Remember. Get the teaching. Learn what you need to learn from it. But forgive it. Let it go. And then we experience a tragedy such as what happened in Boston. And we are faced with love only, forgive everything, regardless of what it is we see. And this week, I was challenged from the outside in, from the facts to the truth. And I was challenged by people who kept saying to me, how do you make sense out of this? How can you make sense out of this? You can't. Please tell me. There is no way to make sense out of this. How can you make sense out of this? So I have to tell you, so my reaction when the event happened and I watched it and I saw the remnants of what had happened, my honest reaction, I didn't instantly jump to science of mind and understand that there's divine right action and everything's working in its perfect place. That was kind of a hard jump for me, even though I knew it to be the truth. It's not really what came first to mind, I'm sure, for most people. What came first to mind for me was I went numb. I literally went numb, and I'm sure many of you can feel that same way. I didn't go to anger. I'm a very forgiving soul. I didn't go to anger. I didn't go to blame. I didn't go to any of that. I went numb. I just went numb. And then I went to compassion for everything I was seeing. Not empathy. Not sympathy. I know better than to sympathize with what's going on or empathize with what's going on, because you don't need my energy showing you what's wrong. What the world needs, what the universe needs, is our energy knowing what's right. So compassion allows me to love only from a non-judgmental and a forgiving place. So I went to compassion. And then I went to a place where I actually understood I was feeling weighed down. Because the facts just kept coming, didn't they? We kept being barraged. We went from an understanding of, oh my God, how did this happen? Oh my God, who did this? To an, oh my God, that's who did this? And the information just kept coming and coming and coming. And you couldn't really turn anywhere without seeing it. And even if you turned away from it, someone was talking to you about it, certainly in my life, because they wanted answers. So the question for me is not how do we make sense out of it. The question for me is, what do we use to make sense out of it? Do we really benefit from trying to make sense out of things from the facts? Do we really benefit by being led by the facts to some kind of an intellectual conclusion about the facts? And that's really true with everything in our lives. Do we allow ourselves to understand our lives based on the facts around us? And the answer really has to be no, because the facts of your life are going to continue to keep pouring in at all times. And frankly, all week it kept getting harder and harder to make sense out of, didn't it? I mean, it really did. For me, anyway, and certainly for a lot of people. And how many people in here are on Facebook? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard not to be, although my husband has decided not to be. He just calls me all the time and says, would you put this on Facebook? I'm going to say no next time. No, I can't say no to him. No. So, Facebook. Oh my God, in a world of Facebook and Twitter, you cannot escape what's going on. And more importantly, you can't escape what people feel about what's going on. So this global world that we live in, this place where we really do, it's not hard to understand the oneness of mind because Facebook pretty much controls it. It controls, it's the repository for everything we're thinking. And there it is, right there. So, how do we make sense out of the facts? Actually, what I came to understand is, the facts are never going to make sense for us. It is up to us to make sense out of the facts, and therefore to look at them through and as the eyes of God. And that really is what today is all about. How do you make sense out of the facts of your life? Do you react in your life, or do you know? Are you a reactive person, or are you someone who knows the truth? Are you a good witch, or are you a bad witch? What is it? You can't be both. Or sometimes I guess you can. Sometimes you know, sometimes you react. But if you're reacting without knowing, then you are like a feather in the wind and you are going to be taken on some kind of a ride that you really don't want to be on, because you will be taken places you don't really want to go. You know, so sometime during the week, I don't remember anymore, a day ago, 2 days ago, when they realized who they were, and then overnight that event happened and both boys, both brothers were brought forward. The one passed away and the other one is in critical condition right now. When I saw the picture of those two boys, my heart just broke. And it broke even further when, on Facebook, I saw the reaction to them. I saw the hate, and I saw the anger, and I saw the horrible things that were being said about Zokhar Zarnev. I don't mean to mispronounce his name, but that's as best I can do, I think. Zokhar Zarnev. And you know that last night someone asked me if I was going to talk about this today. I said yes. They said, you're not going to mention their names, though, because their names have a bad energy to it. And I thought, it's exactly why I'm talking about this today, you know? So I want to read for you something, and it's not for the faint of heart, that I read on Facebook. And it was this. Now that they've found that scum, they should tie him up by his toes and let us all watch him die. Even that's too good for him. And that was on my Facebook page. Somebody put it on my Facebook page. Therefore, it's one of my 3,000 friends. And then there were some more answers after that. And what I noticed, and please don't think that I am being negative about the Christian world, because I'm not. But what I noticed was that the string of reactions that came were all from Christians. People who consider themselves very devout Christians, and one of them was a relative of mine. And I don't like to really get involved in those dialogues, because every time I do, I have to unfriend someone. And the last person I unfriended was a cousin, and I'm still reaping the benefits of that. Why did you unfriend her? Well, because she said this. Well, can't you let her say what she wants? Well, no, not if she's going to talk like that. Well, anyway, but I had to. I had to. And so what I said, interestingly, after you just said what you said this morning, what I said on this Facebook page was, I said, I always find it best in situations like this to ask myself, what would Jesus say? I left it at that. Oh my God, that was the wrong thing to put on this page. And the next thing written back to me was, you are so wrong. And let me just tell you, Jesus would hate just as much as we do. I unfriended them. Actually, I didn't, to be honest. No, thank you for the applause, but I did not unfriend them because I have realized unfriending someone is not a loving act in terms of being able to be an effect in the world. Because right after that, the person who wrote that horrible thing I just read you wrote, I just don't know what to make of this. I'm just very confused. And I got it. Confusion takes us right to anger, right to hate, right to revenge, which makes a great TV series, but not such a great thing inside. So, this eye for an eye mentality, lest we think it's just something old from the Old Testament, it's not. I think we still have the remnants of a collective consciousness, an old belief system that still has in us this idea that we need to get an eye for an eye or else it's not resolved. Someone must suffer in order to deal with the suffering that happened, or else it is not resolved. And yet Gandhi said, an eye for an eye only makes the whole world blind. Makes perfect sense. Now, for those of you who don't know who Joan Bourne Senko is, she wrote a book called Inner Peace for Busy People, which I taught a few summers ago. And it was funny because the class started out with like 20 people and we ended up with 3, and I thought, how busy of them. And it was only a 4-week class. And when I said to people, how come you didn't come back? They said, well, it was summertime, I had a lot to do. So, inner peace for busy people. Anyway, if you're one of those people, I have forgiven you. Here's a quote. This is what Joan Bourne Senko put on her page, and what was great was that after I read all those horrible things on the news on CNN, they showed a flash of when they had found the younger son, the 19-year-old, and it was the picture of him on the ground, being handcuffed, and his shirt was up, and it was just he had this bare back, and my heart just. I thought to myself, what if that were my son? That somehow became so influenced in this world that he did something really stupid. Would I stop loving him? No. There's nothing my son could ever do that would take my love away from him. Or my daughter, lest you think I'm a misogynistic person. Either one of them. And that's what God, if we really look at this idea of God the Father, God the Son, all of which is me, is you, there's nothing we could ever do that would ever stop love from being who we are. Nothing. We're the ones that do that. So Joan Bourne Senko wrote this. She said, the most basic human freedom is our capacity to choose where our attention goes. She says, can you keep it on the task at hand? When it wanders to charged topics like this, charged topics that hook you, can you notice and choose to come back to the truth? And this was a big week for that. This was a great challenging week for that. Can you decide to come back to the truth regardless of what the world is showing you? This week, it was a dramatic moment in your life, in my life, to ask ourselves that question. But it's also every moment that anything happens in our life. Someone disses us, someone does us wrong, we lose a job, we lose a partner, whatever it is. Can we come back? Dan Siegel, he had a metaphor. It's called the wheel of awareness. And I'm going to read this for you. And Joan had this on her site as well. Dan Siegel, he said, either you're present at the hub of the wheel, or you've put a spoke of attention out to some place on the rim. When you notice that you're on the rim, can you choose to return to the hub where there are infinite possibilities? I think most of our country was out on the rim this week. and the hub has been left somewhat untended. And yet today I have 130 people here, and I can do my job in asking you to please, if you're still out on the rim, come back to the hub, because there's a lot of work to do here. There's a lot of love to be done here. There's a lot of peace to be done here. The title of my talk today is, How Does This Make Sense? How does this make sense? And the answer is the same way anything makes sense. Just because it's this huge thing does not mean we change the way it makes sense. There is not a making sense out of this and then a different way of making sense out of this. There's only one way to make sense. So, love only, forgive everything, and remember what you learned. Reverend Rita spoke with someone yesterday, and this person said to her that most people in New Thought don't live the teachings. Most people in New Thought don't live the teachings. Now, I don't ascribe to what other people believe. However, I do think that we are just starting to learn how to really live these teachings. We're just starting to understand. And when something like this happens, like happened this week, my willingness to not go out to the rim and to stay at the hub of truth and know that there is love everywhere and in every event, regardless of what I'm seeing, if that's the truth, and I believe that is the truth, then that's the only way we have to live New Thought or any philosophy. Are we willing to stay at the hub? Are we willing to stay here and not respond in any way that would be demeaning of who we are, to who we are? So this week gave us a chance to really see what we believe. You and I have everything we need to make sense out of any fact ever, anything at all. Religious science only teaches one thing, and that is oneness. I always say three. Oneness, that God is all there is and that that's what I am. But ultimately, if you get oneness, it's pretty much self-contained. Oneness. You know what that means? That means that that boy on the ground was you. That means that that boy who lost his legs was you. That means that that 8-year-old boy who died was you. That means that the parents of the boy on the ground is you. We cannot afford to separate ourselves from any part of this equation and consider any of it more hostile than the other or out of our reach of making sense out of it. That's who we are as religious scientists. That's what we can bring to the world. That's what New Thought can bring to the world if we remind ourselves at all times to stay at the hub and get away from the rim. Yes, there are spokes. I'll always see what's happening around me. But I know where I live, living the science of mind. That's what this is all about. This is something to live. And you know what? There is a power for good in the universe. It's not there is a power in the universe and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. That's not what it is. There is a power for good in the universe. Now, Ernest Holmes said there is a power for good in the universe and you can use it. Good. Good. That was a great beginning. But we have to change it. We have to change it to what we really know to be the truth. There is a power for good in the universe, and you are it. Now, as it, you get to use it. So use it on purpose. Stay at the hub of the truth of your life. Make sense out of everything that comes along from that truth. Don't allow anybody to pull you off of it. Don't allow anything you read, anything you hear, anything anyone says to you to pull you into a reactive, defensive mode. Know the truth in the hub, that there is a power for good in the universe, and I am it. And as it, I have a responsibility to know the truth so securely, so firmly, that nothing can take me away from it. Not Boston, not Osama bin Laden, not Afghanistan, not anything. Not the very famishness that goes on in our own country. None of it can stop me from standing at the hub and saying, there is a power for good in the universe. And as it, I will use it for good. And then I will pour my good all over everything. And then let's see what kind of effect we have on the world when we come back from the rim, stand in the hub, and stand in the truth of who we are. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.